Frontline Motor Pool. So today my plan is to work on the half-ton Dodge. I went in about a month ago. I went up to Ohio, got my WC6 half-ton Dodge, 1940, 41, late 40 I believe it is actually. Got that from Ohio, Andrew Lang, and got it down here. So part of the problem was we had we had quite a bit of challenge getting it up on the trailer because the front tires were shredded, and well, you guys know when you pick up an old vehicle. So once I got it here, realized that it was going to be even more difficult getting it off the trailer. So I had to take a little bit of a sidetrack from working on the Jeep and redo the rims on the half-ton so that it will roll and I can get it off the trailer and get my buddy his trailer back. So in the process of doing that, I learned some things. Okay, this is the first time kind of breaking down some rims and stuff and picking the brains of several people out there. I've come up with a process that works for me. It seems fairly safe. So that's what really we're going to talk about today. My plan is with the Dodge half-ton, give you guys kind of an overview of the rims. It's a two-piece rim. It's got a ring that seats in a groove on the lateral side of the rim, and that's what anchors the tire in place. But there's some precautions that we need to take. Make sure we don't injure somebody, namely me, or the grandbabies that are coming over to visit today. And so I'll point some of that stuff out. Then I'm gonna assemble the rims. I'm gonna do that. I have the tires. I ordered them from Summit Racing. I got a nice reproduction Firestone tire. 5 tires cost me about $1,200 for 12-ply tires, and that included the inner tubes and the inner tube, the protector that goes between the inner tube and the rim itself. So reasonable price. Trucks are always expensive, but reasonable price. Typically I look at like Giga Tire for my Jeep. I got a complete set of tires for my Jeep for about $350 shipped, and for as much as I'm really driving my Jeep, they're perfectly fine, and I'm gonna do the same thing for my Jeep trailer. But anyway, Summit Racing Coker tire makes a really nice replica for the NDTs on the half-ton Dodge. Now, I looked at probably 100 pictures, original pictures, factory photos of command cars being produced or just after production, and almost every single one had herringbone tread tires on them. But you can't get herringbone tires. Nobody will make them, and the NDTs are a suitable replacement, and you do see those during the war being put on the half-ton Dodge trucks. So that's what I'm putting on today. The inner tubes, the tires, the rings, and putting it all on the rim, and then we're going to do a little inflation, which we'll talk about as we do it, but you got to be really careful and cautious as you inflate these so they don't come apart during inflation. So we're going to assemble the rims, then we're going to inflate the tires, and give you a couple techniques for setting the ring on the lateral side of the rim. So stay tuned. The things you're going to need to do to assemble this tire is obviously you're going to need an inner tube with an offset valve stem. You're going to need your inner tube protector. This goes between the inner tube and the rim to keep the inner tube from wearing out. And obviously a tire. You're going to need your rim and the ring that goes on the rim to hold the tire on. So I've done some preparation already on this. As you can see, the tire, there are the 2 different sides of the tire. This side has all the warning data and the marking, and I want that to face inside. I don't want to see that on the outside.
So I want this to face outside. It's got the military, the Firestone. So I have marked here where I want the valve stem to line up, so that when I put the inner tube and everything in here, I'll line the valve stem up, and then I'm going to put it through the rim. And I'll show you how to do that shortly. Now, these rims, unlike modern rims where this is one piece, you have to be careful when you put these together. A modern rim, you put the tire on, there's no inner tube, you get a good seal between the lips, you crank up the air on there, and when you get about 2/3 of your air volume, it'll go pop, and the tire will seal against these lips. And once it does that, you can fill it up the rest of the way. It's not dangerous. It's pretty much not going to hurt you. But these older rims, these two-part rims, there's a number of recorded incidences of people getting killed putting these together incorrectly. So first of all, the way the rim works is on the side that faces outboard, you have this little groove here. And in this groove, there's a little V-shaped notch. And this notch lines up with the ring that's going to go in there. If you look closely, you'll see you got a little V-shaped ring, bead, I guess we'll call it. And what happens is once you've put the tire on and everything, then this will fit over top, and you will slowly inflate the tire, tapping down on this with a mallet to make sure it's seated really good into this groove. Once the bead is against this and it's seated good with about a quarter, maybe 10, 15 pounds of pressure, then you can go back and fill it up slowly until you get to the maximum pressure of the tire. And once it's there, it's not going to come off and it's safe. But if this ring is not in this groove correctly and you start cranking up the air, then it is likely to pop off or shoot off at about 1,000 miles an hour and kill somebody if something's in the way or go through a wall. Locally, there was a lady some time back. They were filling an old tire. This is about 25 years ago. One of the older guys I talked to recently who had a couple half-ton Dodges, and he said one of the ladies he knew got her head cut off when one of these exploded when they were trying to change the tire. He told me of another incident where a guy got a flat, and rather than carefully inflate it, he just started pumping it up full speed. The ring had come dislodged slightly. It came flying off. He lost an arm. Okay, so you got to be really careful about how you put these together, and make sure that when you do inflate them, you inflate them slowly, a few pounds at a time, and ensure that you're wrapping down on this maybe with a rubber mallet, so that that ring is really fully seated before you put all the extra pressure on it. So we're going to go ahead and assemble this. I'm going to show you how I assemble it. I want to thank Andrew Lang and his dad for giving me some pointers on what they do as well. And this is probably a combination of their method and my method. But the first thing you want to do is you want to identify where your valve stem is going to go through the rim. Okay, now on this inner tube, if you look, obviously the valve stem is slightly offset and it has a bend in it, and that's going to have to fit through this ring, and it's going to come through at an angle so that you can fill it with air from the outside when you're using the vehicle. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get in there. You're going to have to climb up underneath the vehicle and fill up the air from behind, and that's going to that's going to really suck. So anyway, that's how we want it to be. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to orient the tire where I want the valve stem to be. So there's my valve stem, there's my mark on my tire, and so I'm going to lay out my inner tube so that the valve stem comes out from the tire side of the tire I want to use where I've marked it. You can see the white mark there, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to start. First thing to do, I'm going to poke that in. And you want to make sure you don't have a twist in your inner tube. It should sit in there flat with no twist. Now, I have not used any talcum powder or anything because I found that when I use the talcum powder, it slides too easily and it's a little harder for me to hold everything together. So I don't do that. Once I have the inner tube in here and lined up with my valve stem, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my inner tube protector. Okay? And this is going to fit around the inner tube like that. Now, there's a hole in here, and that's where the valve stem goes. And I know my valve stem is coming out from this side, so it's offset to this side. So I need it to be offset. So put that in there. And then I'm going to tuck this in around either side of the inner tube into the area inside the tire here. And then I'm going to work my way around, all the way around, doing the same thing until it fits flush and there's no wrinkles and there's no folds in the inner tube. Okay, so if you look now, I have the inner tube in here. I have not put any additional air in here to help hold it. The only thing that's holding it in place is my inner tube protection flap. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift it over the rim and I'm going to line up my stem and poke it through the hole first. This is the only way I figured out how to easily get it through the hole without breaking the stem. Once I get it through the hole, I'm going to take a little look here, make sure my inner tube flap is all in together. I'm going to kind of wiggle it in, and I'm going to line up the tire and push it down. Now I have half of it over the rim. I'm going to tuck the rest of the rubber in, make sure nothing is pinching. Okay, now it is lined up. The valve stem I can see through the hole. It is not cocked left or right. Now I'm simply going to put the ring in, line it up with the groove, work it around, snap it in place. Tomorrow I'm going to inflate these tires. I'm going to do it slowly. I'm actually going to go ahead and partially mount them on the truck so that they don't go anywhere in case I do have an accident and the ring comes flying off. But I'll show you more about that when we do it tomorrow. Alright, my first attempt to get this tire together, it's kind of a failure because the ring had a bend in it. It was warped. I was thinking about just repairing it. I think I can buy a new ring from Vintage Power Wagon. So I'm just going to get a replacement ring. I have a couple extras. We'll just have to see what kind of condition they are. So this is one of the rings that I repaired. So we'll see if this one works a little better. So I had to take the air out. Yeah, this looks like it's going to fit a little better. So I had to take the valve stem out, let the air back out so I can push the tire back down. So this will be take 2. I was going to do this outside, but it's like 100 degrees outside, so I'm like, screw that. I'm coming in to turn the air conditioner on in the shop here. So here we go. So it turns out one of my rings was no longer round. It had been in an accident, I guess. They hit a curve or something. I tried to repair it, make it work, but that didn't work. So I went out to my extras and I did find a ring that was still round and true. And so I had to do some repairs on it. I painted it. It's out there drying right now. So that's kind of delayed this evolution a little bit, but I'll go ahead and get this tire together, and then the last one will just be waiting on the paint to dry. My dogs have come out to help me in this project, and so I'll show you one last time. Basically, you want to make sure you soak in between here on the side where the ring is at a minimum, because you want this to slide smoothly up against the ring and not snap and pop. So I've got some soapy water here. Alright, so I just had to bend out the flange. This flange was bent downward a little bit so it wouldn't seat right. So I really just put it in the vise and slowly bent it so it's straight and even. All right, so I got this one aired up. So if you look where the ring comes together, it forms a V. You want a slight bit of air. You want to be able to see a little bit of daylight between that. That tells you that the ring is fully seated and it's not forcing its way out. You can see here a little bit of the tire behind it, so I know that's good. I got a good seat all the way around. I looked on the back side and it's seated all the way around. So now I just got to get out the pressure gauge and air them up the rest of the way. All right, front line motor pool. I got all the tires taken care of. A few snafus along the way. I had two of the rings that were out of round. One I was able to repair, make some adjustments with the hammer, and the other one I had to kind of throw in the scrap yard, in the scrap pile for later. I did have a spare that I was able to repair and paint up and use that worked perfectly. So I have 5 good tires. A couple notes in the process. I never used more than 15 pounds of pressure, air pressure, to seat any of the rings for any of the rims. Surprisingly, most of them seated with about 8 pounds of pressure. So it doesn't take very much to get the rings seated and the tire up against the ridge, up against the flare. Once that's done and you can see that the ring is set into the groove well, then you can pump it up to 35 psi. The max of tire pressure was 40. I'm just going to run at 35 psi, and that should be more than satisfactory. So just got a couple little touch-ups on my little paint on my rims to do, because I've scuffed them up really good, but otherwise I've achieved my goal. I gave you guys an overview of how the half-ton Dodge rims work. We assembled the tires and rims, and I showed you guys my process, at least, of how to inflate them and get them together. So I hope this was helpful for you. Again, this was for the Dodge half-ton, which covers about 50 different models, and it would be appropriate to all of those models. All right, have a great day.